we'll go on the record. All right, for the record, today is Tuesday, September 13th, 2016. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. This is the date and time set for the hearing in the matter of Community Water Company's request for an interim rate increase pending adjudication of its rate case, which has been filed with the Commission. Let's get appearances on the record. For Community Water.
I'm Emily Lewis with the law firm of Clyde Snow and Sessions on behalf of Community Water.
Thank you.
And I'm Stephen Clyde with Clyde Snow and Session.
Thank you. For the division,
Patricia E. Schmidt with the Attorney General's Office for the division. And with me as the division's witnesses are Mr. Mark Long and Mr. William Duncan.
thank you. And I believe we have two of our interveners on the phone. Mr. Lang, are you there?
I am here.
And do you have anyone with you?
No.
And Mr. Martin, you're there as well, yes?
Yes.
And do you have anyone with you?
No.
Okay. And are there any other interveners in the room?
Yes, Scott Savvy, I'm an attorney, Savvy Jason Water, and representing myself as intervener as president of
Thank you.
My name is William Granny. I'm a full-time resident at Parkwest Villa, and I'm representing myself as the intervener.
Okay. Go ahead.
Fran Amendola, I'm providing technical support to the Red Pine Plan.
Okay. Do you need any of those names spelled? Okay. Do you want to take care of it now? Mr.
William Granny, C-R-E-N-N-Y.
Scott Savvy, S-A-V-A-D.
Okay.
Your Honor, would you like us to identify our witnesses while we're on the record for spelling and stuff like that?
Sure, why not? Who are you going to have?
Today we're going to call two witnesses on behalf of Community Water. Our first witness will be Mike Folkman, M-I-K-F-O-L-K-M-A-N. Mike Folkman, F-O-L-K-M-A-N. And then our second witness will be Stacy Wilson.
Okay. Do you want to do the same, Patricia, Ms. Schmidt?
I did.
Your two witnesses there. Okay, Mark Long and William Duncan. All right. Please bear in mind that we are streaming this hearing today. As we know, there is a great deal of community interest in this case. So avoid disclosing confidential information. If you do need to disclose confidential information, let me know ahead of time and we will turn off the streaming temporarily. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I believe we can get going. Let's start with Community Water. Go ahead and call your witnesses.
Okay. All right. So, certainly, if we could like to call our first witness, Mike Folkman. Prior to doing so, if I would just like to take a couple minutes just to give a brief introduction and kind of background, I think, to set the stage for exactly how we've come to the hearing today for the interim rate increase request. And then also, prior to calling our witnesses, I do want to address the comments of John and Colleen Burke just very quickly. So I think that we all know this has been a long and storied case, and we're very happy to be here today. I think that everyone here is very solution-oriented, and it's been very congenial, and we've been working through a lot of these issues together, and I think that that should be noted. As you know, Community Water has not had its rates increased since 2002. The existing rates are about $12 for 5,000 gallons of water. That has proved insufficient to support the maintenance and replacement needs for the company. Therefore, we, between 2002 and 2013, when the company was acquired by its parent company, TCFC, no rates were sought or increased. And so we would like to express our appreciation and patience with both the Commission and also the Division of Public Utilities during the last several years while TCFC has been in active negotiations to try to find a new owner for the company that's better suited to water management. That is included 2 previous rate cases that have been withdrawn upon good faith understanding that negotiations would prove to be successful and continuing with the rate case would not be needed. Unfortunately, those negotiations did not prove successful, and we find ourselves here today. And so we just wanted on the record to just express our appreciation and patience with both the Commission and the Division. Just real quickly, I'd like to just talk about what exactly our intent is for the day today. So for an interim rate increase, the standard is less than the general rate increase. Today, we intend to show to Your Honor that the implementing the rate at an interim basis is justified. And to do that today, we're going to have Mike speak to the current condition of the system and then also very specific targeted improvements. Revenue from the interim increase will fund, and then Stacy is going to speak more specifically to the comments raised by both B&D Platte homeowners and the Red Pine Homeowners Association. Before moving into those specific direct testimony, I just want to quickly address some of the comments presented by the Burks. They are a little bit outside of the scope of this particular hearing, but we did want to say that though they underscore the need for further investment into the community water system, I do believe that TCFC is complying with all the regular and correct processes, which is rate making, and that is how the company should and the correct procedure for increasing revenue. And so we just wanted to briefly state appreciation for their comments, but just to also reiterate that this is the correct process for what they have suggested. So with that, we please like to call our first witness, Mike Folkman.
Mr. Folkman, do you swear to tell the truth today?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Great.
So Mike today is going to speak to basically generally the condition of the community water system, but more specifically we'd like to explain to the Commission and also those present why the interim request is needed and justified, and specifically what improvements we intend to fund with the revenue created between the implementation of the rate, which we're also, Your Honor, going to ask for a bench order from today. And so between today, which is we're hoping to have the rate implemented if you see fit, October 1st, between October 1st and February 8th, when the general rate case is due to conclude, there would be 5 billing cycles for community water. And so per billing cycle, with just the base rates, the community water receive about $10,600 per billing cycle, just on base rates, no usage alone. And so that money can go quite far to get us some very specific improvements.
Just so you know, I can't give you a bench ruling today. This matter does have to go back to the Commission for
Okay.
ruling, but we will do that very quickly.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Mike, could you please state your name, address, your current employer, and your title with that employer?
It's Mike Folkman, 532 North, 1300 East, Beaver City, 84032. And I work for Summit Water, and I am a systems operator.
You might want to speak into the microphone a little bit more.
Okay.
So, Mike, have you ever testified at a Public Service Commission or before a Public Service Commission administrative law judge before?
No.
Great. And for whom are you testifying today?
Community water.
Great. And what is your educational background?
I have an associate's degree.
Do you have any professional certificates or training that is relevant to our discussion today?
Yes, I'm certified as a utility manager. I'm a grade 4 treatment and a grade 4 systems operator. I'm certified as water rights and a cross-connect and administrator.
Okay. And how long have you worked for Summit Distribution Company?
15 years.
And can you please describe your relationship to Community Water Company and how long you have held that role?
Yeah, Summit has been contracted from community to maintain the system and operate it, and I have done that for all 15 years. 14 of the 15 years I've been the system manager for community water.
And how many hours a month do you spend working on the community water system?
Approximately like 80 to 120-ish.
And specifically, what tasks do you perform for the company?
Basically everything on the ground as far as operating the water treatment plant, the wells, the system, repairing leaks, getting all the numbers ready for the state, usage data, water quality, customer service, and then dealing with TCFC on these upgrades that we want to have done.
Okay. So you're very familiar with the system.
Yeah.
Great. Can you please explain the kinds of water services the company provides to its customers?
Yeah, we provide culinary irrigation, and then we have a few commercial entities.
Is there any distinction between the water delivered for these various purposes?
Oh, it's all culinary grade.
And are you familiar with recent efforts to assess the condition of the community water system?
Yes.
Did you participate or contribute in the Bowens and Collins and Associate rate study prepared in 2015?
I did.
And did you participate or contribute to the Bowens and Collins and Associates Water Master Plan prepared in 2014?
I did.
Though beyond the general scope of today's hearing, just for context, based on your knowledge and assistance with these documents, what's your assessment of the current condition of the community water system?
It's generally in pretty bad shape.
Okay. Can you give some concrete examples or needed necessary upgrades?
The meters are all way over their life expectancy. Typically, we like to replace them every 10 to 15 years. Good majority of them are 30 plus years old. The treatment plant is running on a lot of original equipment. Pumps are close to failure. Monitoring equipment are outdated, and there's no replacement parts available.
And for a meter, what is the general age range that for maintaining accuracy for a meter?
10 to 15 years.
And many of those are beyond that.
Most of them are 30 plus.
Okay, great. So, Mike, I'd like to talk to you today about the purpose for having the interim rate request application, and that's specific improvements needed that we think that are targeted improvements of which the revenue from the interim rate could fund. And I'd like to ask you several specific questions regarding those improvements. So, what are the most needed immediate improvements for the system?
Probably high priority is the meters themselves, and then treatment plant upgrades.
Okay. And why is it important to prioritize replacing the meters?
So we can get better information on our usage, and then also with that comes more revenue when we can accurately count the water people are using.
Okay. And how many and what kind of meters are currently installed throughout the system?
We have 16-inch-and-a-half or bigger meters. A few of those are like up to 6 inches. And then we have 150 5/8 to 1 inch for single-family homes and condos.
And for those larger meters, who do they typically service?
The HOAs, condos.
And they're different than the smaller meters.
Yes.
Do they require more maintenance?
They're more expensive to replace for sure.
Great. Of the meters that you just mentioned, how many are functioning adequately?
About 10% are working with no problems. 10% don't work at all. 30% are over 10 years old, and 50% are the 30-ish years old.
So approximately 90% of the existing meters are in need of repair. Okay. Do you know how many and what kind and the Do you know how many, what kind, and the cost of meters needing to replace by the community water system?
Roughly, yeah, we need 26 inch-and-a-half to 2 inch, which is approximately $21,000. 150 5/8 to 1 inch, which is about another 70,000, and then 1 6-inch, which is 4,000.
And Your Honor, we do have some bids for meters that Community Water has prepared. If you'd like those for the record, for as a courtesy, and if not,
It's up to you. I'm happy to take whatever you want to
All right.
submit.
We would like to submit today, and we have copies for people in the room as well if they would like to have them. But may I approach?
Yes.
So, Mike, are you familiar with this document here?
Yeah.
And can you just explain a little bit to the Ms. Johnson, Honorable Ms. Johnson, and the individuals in the room exactly what is on that document?
This is for some of our single-family homes. But included in that is also the training and the software. There's almost $5,000 in software and training for them. And then the unit price is just per meter.
Mhm. And then can you please explain the bid, the back of the document as well?
Oh, this is from their competitor, and it's just basically sizes. The one thing the front, the hydro specialty quote does not include is there is a monthly fee for the self-service of those. The back prices include that there's no monthly fee included on those.
So Community Water has begun and commenced the steps to try and get an accurate accounting for what the costs are to replace their meters.
Correct.
Okay, just a moment. Ms. Schmidt, do you have any objections to this document being entered as an exhibit?
No objection.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, any objection? Mr. Grenny, any objection? Mr. Amendola, any objection? And Mr. Lang and Mr. Martin, I know you can't see this. It is bids for the meters that Community Water Company expects it will need to purchase. Any objection to this being in the record?
No objection. This is Lang, I know it's
Thank you. I'll mark this then as Community Water Company's Exhibit A. All right, go ahead.
Okay, Mike, in addition to the costs that are outlined on these bids, are there any other costs that would be associated with installing the needed meters?
Yeah, those are just parts. There's labor included as well.
And so using these two bids as an estimate and including your time and labor to install, what do you estimate the cost to be to replace the priority meters that you've identified?
Approximately 125,000.
Okay, and so do you have you split that between labor and equipment?
Yeah, 95,000 for equipment and approximately 30,000 for labor.
Great. And if you had the funds available, how quickly can Community Water install these meters?
Approximately 30 a month. So.
Mm-hmm. And percentage-wise, do you know what percentage that is regarding the total percentage?
10 to 15%.
10 to 15% a month.
Probably.
Great. So are you familiar with the general rate case pending before the commission and the recommended rates?
Yeah.
Okay. It is projected that just the new base rates will increase revenue by about $10,621.20 per billing cycle for the 502 connections at Community Water. Based on our discussion, you just discussed this, but about how much will this additional revenue allow you? How many meters will this additional revenue allow you to install?
We could do about 10% a month with that cash flow.
Okay. And so, if the interim rate is approved by October 5 and we have 5 billion cycles, that would be about 50% of your meters?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. And what will the impact of installing those meters be?
It'd help us operate the system better as far as water loss, demand versus supply, and then it would also create that additional revenue. Get some more money coming in so we can fix more of the treatment plant and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So would you agree that the interim rate increase, the revenue from an interim rate increase would be justified and further along having a functioning system?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything else that you would like the commission to know today?
Nope.
Okay. That's all the testimony we have for Mr. Folkman today.
Ms. Schmidt, any questions for Mr. Folkman? Mr. Savage, any questions?
Approximately 200. Are you looking at the? Yes, yeah, that bid was for just a one-time order. It's not for the complete system at all. At the time we had, yeah, we have the ones that we were targeting. We're going to try to do the ones that are non-working, of course, and then single-family residencies that use more irrigation. I know which ones do not work. There's, like I said, there's about 10% of them that don't work at all. No, They are a mix throughout the system. I believe those are your irrigation meters, and they work, but they are old, and so they are probably inaccurate. And when meters are inaccurate, they let more water through, so we're not actually charging for the real amount of the water that's used. They aren't on that hydro specialties quote, but they were included in my numbers as far as what needed to be replaced in general. Yeah, but they're not on that hydro specialties quote.
Mr. Grenny, any questions for Mr. Folkman? Mr. Amendola, any questions?
Just a couple real quickly. Michael, thank you for coming today, and your expertise on the system is really appreciated. Two questions. On the estimate here, this seems to have no information on the 6-inch, on the larger irrigation meters, is that right?
On the quote,
Yes.
the hydro specialties does not, but the one on the back, which is from Metron, it does. And I think that's kind of where we're leaning, is to the Metron side.
Okay, and my only other question is, how does it determine the inaccuracies of the meter? How do we know that these meters aren't working up to par?
We don't know as far as bench testing or anything like that, but just industry standard is they wear out and they wear out, and most water companies replace them within 10 to 15 years.
So it's simply based on the age of the
Age and the gallonage that's went through the meters.
Mr. Lang, any questions for Mr. Folkman?
No, but a comment, it's very difficult to get at least half the testimony, like way off in the distance. I don't know if
Yes.
the microphone can be readjusted or not.
We will do our best.
Thank you.
Mr. Martin, any questions for Mr. Folkman?
No, not at this time.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Lewis, go ahead with the next
Okay.
witness.
Community Water Company would please like to call Miss Stacy Wilson.
And Ms. Wilson, do you swear to tell the truth today?
I do.
Thank you.
So Ms. Wilson today will give testimony regarding the operations and billing used at Community Water. Over the last several weeks, Mr. Folkman and Ms. Wilson have worked very in depth together to try and figure out an equitable solution to many of the comments submitted by the B&D Plat Owners Homeowners Association and the Red Pine Homeowners Association. The cumulative goal is for us to have have one connection charged for the cumulative domestic and irrigation use associated with that connection, and Ms. Wilson will speak to how we intend to do so. Can you please state your name, address, current employer, and title?
Yeah. It's Stacy Wilson, 1264 South Hoytsville Road, Colville, Utah. It's ASC Utah, and I'm an office coordinator.
Have you ever testified at a hearing before the Public Service Commission or a Public Service Commission administrative law judge before?
No.
And for whom are you testifying today?
On the behalf of Community Water.
What is your educational background?
I graduated from North Summit High School. I graduated from Sherman Kendall's Academy of Beauty, Arts, and Science in Salt Lake City, Utah.
And do you have any professional certificates or other training that is relevant to our discussion today?
I've taken a few Excel classes,
And how long have you worked for ASC Utah?
just a little over 3 years.
And can you please describe your relationship to Community Water Company?
As part of my job with ASC, I assist with community water matters.
Okay. And how many hours a month do you spend working on the community water matters?
Probably about 40.
Specifically, what tasks do you perform for the company?
I input the meter reads, I do the billing statements, accounts payable and receivable. I assist with state agency compliance.
Okay. Based on your training and firsthand experience, do you consider yourself familiar with and able to speak to community water's billing practices?
Yes.
Mr. Folkman stated that the community water system was culinary grade and water is used for different purposes such as irrigation, domestic, and commercial. Are those uses billed any differently?
No. They're all billed the same.
And generally, how are community water customers currently billed?
They're billed monthly statements. In the rears of each account is billed like the 1st and the 5th of every month.
Between the 1st and the 5th?
Yes.
And how many billing accounts does community water currently have?
186,
And how many connections does community water company have?
502 connections.
Can you generally explain how the different number of accounts and connections and how they relate to one another?
Yes, some accounts have several sub-meters that roll into a master meter that then is billed.
And can you please identify what the current billing software used by community water is to bill its customers?
Abbreviated, it's CUSI. It's Continental Utility Service Incorporated.
Okay. And do you find the software to be adequate for its purposes?
This is the only experience I've had with utility software. So there has been a few glitches, but it works pretty well.
And then do you have contact to company representatives if you have questions about the billing software?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson, I'd like to ask you a little bit about responses to the specific comments on billing submitted by the HOAs. We're going to start with Red Pine. Have you read and are familiar with the comments submitted by the Red Pine Homeowners Association?
Yes.
To start, how is the Red Pine Homeowners Association currently billed?
The HOA represents several accounts that provides water for 200 chalet units, a clubhouse, and currently they have all irrigation meters in the common spaces.
Okay. And in the Red Pine HOA comments, they mentioned that there were also Red Pine townhomes. Can you explain how water use of the townhomes is currently billed?
There are 60 townhomes that are separately billed for each account from the HOA.
So they're billed different than the HOA?
Yes, they're billed, yes, that's correct.
And then do each of these townhomes have their own meter?
Yes,
So in some, each townhome is billed separately and is billed on its own independent meter.
correct.
And currently, where is the irrigation for the townhomes billed from?
Sorry, say that again.
And so currently, the irrigation at the townhomes, who is billed for the irrigation of the townhomes?
They, like, the individuals, right? The individuals are billed.
For their metered use at their townhomes.
Correct.
And the metered use of their townhomes, is that domestic usually for inside use or for outside use?
It's all domestic.
It's all domestic. So the meters of the townhomes do not include irrigation.
They do not.
Okay. Would you say that the company's primary comment or concern is regarding how irrigation for the townhomes is going to be billed under the new system?
Yes.
Okay. Before we get into the specifics, has the company looked at and addressed the concerns of Red Pine HOA regarding irrigation billing?
Yes.
How have they done so?
So the company is proposing to designate different meters to track domestic and irrigation water usage for different units.
And how will they go about doing that?
So one set of meters will be domestic and irrigation use at the Red Pine chalets, and the clubhouse will be billed to the HOA. The second set of meters will track the irrigation at the townhomes and will be prorated to each of the town homeowners.
So the townhomeowners will receive a bill for their meter domestic use and then a portion of the irrigation at the townhomes.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Moving on to the specifics, the Division of Public Utilities has recommended a new base rate of 33.20 for each connection. How will these base rates be applied to the Red Pine HOA?
So each month they'll be charged the recommended base rate of $33.20 times 200 connections, or $6,640 for the Red Pine chalets.
Will there be any additional charges that billed to the HOA?
Yep. So each month they will be charged 13 irrigation connections and recommended the base rate of $33.20 or $431.60.
Are there any other charges that will be billed to the new HOA?
Yep, and also that includes the clubhouse. So there will be, the clubhouse will be charged $33.20 for one connection.
Okay. Your Honor, we've also prepared for the discussion today a table that is our proposed billing schedule, because I think there are a lot of numbers that we're about to talk about, and so we figured this might be an easier way for everyone to follow along.
I was actually hoping you had.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Will you just circulate it to
Certainly.
everybody and we'll see if there's any objection?
Your Honor, may we have a brief recess to examine this for a couple of moments?
Sure. Let's go ahead and go off the record. We'll come back in, say, 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis, we are still with you. Oh, are we streaming?
Great.
Okay, we're still with you. And is there any objection to the recommended rate structure document being entered into the record as Exhibit B?
Your Honor, can I make a clarification on that?
Let's do.
It's the proposed billing under the recommended rate structure.
Thank you.
And the division has an objection insofar as it has not had a, what I would call reasonable amount of time to double-check the numbers and things like that. The division has no objections if it is entered for illustrative purposes.
And it is intended to be so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Savage? Okay, thank you. Mr. Grenny? Not right now. Right now, I just need to know if you have any objection to this document coming into the record as an exhibit. Thank you. Mr. Amendola?
No objection unless the use of this document is clearly explained on the record.
Thank you. Mr. Lang?
What I want to say is, I would object only insofar as it does not address the billing methodology that is at the heart of my comments. However, if that's a separate issue, then I would accept the document as okay.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
No objection at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt, go ahead.
I've just been made aware that the monthly water usage charges in the second block, the first entitled Red Pine Chalet Domestic Water, and the second Red Pine Clubhouse, those numbers do not reflect the division's numbers. So again, the division objects to this for anything but illustrative purposes.
Thank you. I have marked this as Community Water Company's Exhibit B. All right, go ahead. Ms. Lewis.
So what we'd like to do currently right now is discuss how Community Water intends to apply the recommended rates represented by the division in their petition filed on June 13th. To do so, we have created an illustrative table to explain how we intend to apply and extrapolate the recommended rates proposed by the division on an interim basis, and how we're going to apply that to the HOA associations and in response to the comments submitted by Plat B&D and Red Pine. Okay, Stacy. So moving on to specifics, we are talking about how Community Water Company is intending to bill the Red Pine Homeowners Association. Prior to our recess, we were talking about what the general things the company has done. Can we now please move into specifics about how the company is proposing to bill for the base rates for Red Pine?
So it's gonna be 30 cents per,
Oh, no, the base rates for per, I think, well, I guess that was already on your testimony,
It
so.
was, but do you want me to go back over it? I'm happy to.
I think that would be good to kind of start in general again. Please
Okay.
do.
So each month, the HOA will be charged a recommended base rate of $33.20 times 200 connections or units, or the $6,640 for the Red Pine Chalets. And then the HOA will be charged 13 irrigation connections at the recommended base rate of $33.20 or $431.60. And they will also be charged for the Red Pine HOA Clubhouse of the base rate of $33.20, one connection.
Okay. And then how will base rates be applied to the townhome owners?
So the 60 Red Pine townhomes will be charged independently, billed $33.20 each month.
The division has recommended a new tiered water rate based on usage. And we've prepared a table that demonstrates what that usage will be extrapolated out for the various considerations of the HOAs. Can you please explain how water usage at the Red Pine HOA will be accounted for?
So domestic and irrigation water usage for Red Pine Chalets will occur on designated company meters. Domestic water usage for the clubhouse will occur on 1 meter. Each month, the HOA will be charged an aggregated amount of a domestic and irrigation water consumption at the Red Pine Chalets and clubhouse.
And in the table that is now marked as Exhibit B, are those the water meter numbers that are associated with what the company proposes to bill as irrigation meters and as domestic meters? Those water meters are for domestic 98 and 235, and then irrigation as 106 through 113.
That is correct.
And how will the Red Pine HOA be billed for water usage under the new rate structure?
The HOA will be charged the usage at the Red Pine clubhouse according to the recommended rates, and then the HOA, the chalets, according to their recommended tier pricings times 200 units.
Okay, can you please read from the table we have prepared exactly what the tier limits now extrapolated for the 200 units and the use intervals are extrapolated for the 200 units?
Yep, it's 30 cents per 200,000 gallons up to 2.4 million gallons, 60 cents per 200,000 gallons between 4.2 million gallons to 4.8 million gallons, $1.20 per 2,000 gallons between 4.8 million to 2.7 million gallons.
7.2.
Oh, sorry, 7.2.
You're flipping some of your numbers.
I'm
On
sorry.
Tier 2, also, I believe you said 4.2, but it's 2.4.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. And then $2.40 per 200,000 gallons between 7.2 million to 9.6 million gallons. $4.80 per 200,000 gallons above 9.6 million gallons.
Okay. And Stacy, the upon our review, the numbers stated in our table are correct according to your understanding. If there are any questions about what should govern.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So will the HOA be responsible for dividing the total bill among its HOA members?
Yes.
If the HOA wanted more certainty regarding individual domestic usage between the condo units, is there a solution under the new rate?
The HOA will pay the recommended connection fee of $3,750 to add more additional meters.
Okay. Okay, now turning to the townhomes, how does the company propose assessing water usage at the 60 individual townhomes?
Each townhome will be individually metered for the domestic use. In addition, the domestic use for, let's see.
Okay. Will any other water be associated with the townhome in additions to their domestic use?
The irrigation, and it will be divided by 1 by 60 towards the townhomes. Each townhome will get a bill for 1/60 of what they use.
Of their irrigation uses?
Correct.
And that will be in addition to their independently metered domestic use?
That's correct.
So in sum, each townhome will receive a bill that's going to be the combination of 1/60th of their irrigation and their individually metered domestic use.
That is correct.
Okay. And then how will usage at the townhomes be billed?
The total domestic use and the shared of the irrigation of each townhome is billed accordingly to the new rate.
And can you please repeat for everybody, and this is also on the table provided, what that new rate is?
Okay. So it's 30 cents per thousand up to 12,000 gallons. It's 60 cents per thousand between 12,001 and 24,000 gallons. It's $1.20 per thousand gallons between 24,001 and 36,000. It's $2.40 per thousand gallons between 36,001 gallons and 48,000. $4.80 per thousand gallons above 48,000 gallons one.
Okay. And does this table accurately reflect what we just discussed?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to move on to address the comments by Plat B and D Homeowners Association. Have you read and are you familiar with the comments submitted by Plat B and D Homeowners Association?
Yes.
Would you agree the primary concern of the Plat B and D Homeowners Association is how irrigation is going to be built?
Yes.
What are the unique attributes of the Plat B and D Homeowners Association?
There are 30 independently metered townhomes and 2 irrigation meters.
Can you please explain how Community Water proposes to bill the Plat B and D for the new recommended base rates?
Each individual townhome will be charged a recommended base rate of $33.20. The HOA will be billed the base rate of $33.20 for the 2 irrigation meters.
Okay. And Your Honor, in recess, we did have a discussion about the billing of base rate charges for irrigation meters, and I do think that we may revisit the billing for billing base rates for irrigation meters, just as a note. Okay. How is the water usage going to be determined for the B and D Plat townhome owners?
Each townhome will be individually metered for the domestic use, and then they will be responsible for 1/30 of the irrigation use at the townhomes.
Okay. How does the company propose to bill the Plat B and D homeowners?
So each of the townhomes will be billed the individually total domestic use plus 1/30th of the irrigation for the townhomes being billed accordingly to the new tier structure.
Okay. And again, the tier, does this document that we have provided as an illustration of how the company proposes to apply the recommended rate, does that adequately reflect what the recommended rates are?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Is Community Water Company's billing software capable of the proposed billing practices under the new recommended rate we just discussed?
Yes, I spoke to COSI.
Are there any other shared connections or HOAs who have not submitted comments?
Yes, Hidden Creek and Canyons View.
How will the company bill those similar entities so that those who have submitted comments know that the billing that we've recommended is equitable?
So billing for those HOAs is different because they have townhomes with independent meters. The HOAs will be billed for the total domestic and irrigation use and will be split those costs among the members.
Okay, I'm going to ask a clarifying question. For the other HOAs not represented here today, do they have independent meters in townhomes or do they have independent meters?
For Hidden Creek, they do not.
Okay.
And then Canyons View, they only have, I believe, 3.
So most of the water uses is communal amongst all of the users, and
Yes, that is correct.
okay. So has the company adequately addressed the comments submitted?
Yes.
And I think that some of our discussion during the recess will also inform these comments more. And then, is there anything else that you would like the commission to know?
Ms. Schmidt, any questions?
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
Were you involved in the community water rate case that was filed in the 14 docket and subsequently withdrawn?
I was.
Were you involved in the community water rate case that was filed in docket 15098-01 and subsequently withdrawn?
Yep, I was.
And you've been involved in this docket, of course, for community water.
I have.
Based upon your experience working with and for community water, is it your opinion that the current rates have contributed to the status of the water system in that it needs repairs and requires meter upgrades?
Yes.
Is it your opinion that a rate increase is required to better the system?
Definitely.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, any questions? Mr. Grenny, any questions for this witness? Mr. Amendola, any questions for this witness?
I just want to clarify something on the Red Pine townhomes and also on the Plat B and G. Is the cumulative use of 60 units for the Red Pine townhomes times the 12,000 gallons designated for water tier 1 rate?
Can someone clarify that?
Maybe clarify that. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Mr. Amendola, actually, let me have you come up and use a microphone. It'll be easier for our callers to hear you. You can sit right there. Just tap the button that says push and make sure you have a green light before you begin.
That's good.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's better. Thank you.
I want to clarify the application of the 12,000 gallons for each of the connections with respect to the Red Pine townhome owners and also to the Plat B and D homeowners. So the footnote that is on under monthly water use charges for Red Pine chalets, there's a line item in there that says usage intervals equals 12,000 gallons times 200 units. Okay? Should that footnote be inserted in the lower table that deals with Red Pine townhomes? And also, should that line item be included under the Plat B and D homeowners rates?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So there's no 12,000 gallon allocation allowed to the Red Pine townhome meters.
There is.
There is, that they're individually metered, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you live in a Red Pine townhome, you're going to get a bill for $33.20 each month, plus billing for whatever water you actually use in your home, plus 1/60th of whatever water is used by the association for irrigation purposes
Of the townhomes.
of the townhomes.
Yes, correct. And that methodology is also applied for the B and D Plat homeowners.
Anything else, Mr. Amendola?
I did have one other question. Actually, no, I'm good.
Okay, Mr. Lang, any questions?
It has to do, and I don't know if this is going to be proprietary information or not. It very well be. It comes off of a redacted document from 15098-01, which Ms. Wilson said she was involved in. And my question is simply this. The amount of water used by the townhomes in 2013 and 2014 is listed in this document along with all the other community water customers. I've gone through, there are two columns in that particular form, and I don't have a form to show you, but there's a column called actual usage and a column called billed usage. The actual usage for the Red Pine townhomes in 2013 and again in 2014 was considerably higher than the billed usage. So I'm looking for an explanation of what those two columns mean. Do they really mean what they seem to say? You know, more water was used than was actually billed for, which then would create a shortcoming of funds.
Okay,
So
so,
that's my question.
okay, so just a moment. I believe Mr. Lang is looking at a document that is not in the record here. It's from a prior filing. It is also, you know, outside the scope of your direct. But if you would like to help him understand that, and if you're able to, I'll certainly let you.
May I respond to that
And,
comment?
and the reason I ask this is the DPU would have used this document to formulate the current 16098-01 rate. Okay.
Thank you. Sustained. Okay, go ahead.
May I make a comment? I think that it's important to remember the purpose of today's hearing. Today's hearing is regarding whether or not the application for an interim rate increase is justified based on prima facie evidence of what we've shown today. As of right now, we're not challenging the basis for the Division of Public Utilities rates. What we're asking for today is for the Public Service Commission and the Honorable Ms. Johnson to implement the rates currently recommended as recommended by the division on an interim basis.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lang, the answer to your question is, if you feel like those numbers are incorrect, you can bring that evidence when we have the full hearing on this matter. But for today, we're just here to establish whether or not Community Water has made a prima facie case to support a rate increase in the interim.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Martin, any questions?
No questions at this time.
Okay. And Ms. Lewis,
I have an additional question. I just realized.
this is Mr. Lang.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Lang. So in respect with the landscaping/irrigation water, when that shuts down, has Community Water considered whether or not those meters can go on standby basis, and or the monthly charge would no longer apply during the inactive time periods where there is no irrigation at all? And those months would comprise something generally between October up to and including April or parts of April or into May.
Okay, so the question is, when the HOAs are not running any water through their irrigation meters, would it be charged the $33.20 rate per month, or would it be charged the standby rate per month?
I believe if they meet the standby requirements of which the division has recommended, that we are at this point in time for the interim rate recommending that we adopt the entirety of the division's proposed rate. And if it meets that rate, then yes, we would have it fall on standby. If it doesn't meet the standby criteria, then no, the original base charge of $33.20 would continue to be charged.
All right. Do you have any other witnesses, Ms. Lewis?
No, and just to kind of a final comment, we appreciate everybody's cooperation today. Also, these are proposed billing practices. If the conversations amongst the entities bring to light other information that would justify modifying what we proposed today, the company is more than amenable to discuss that and to adopt something that is equitable for all of the customers.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt, any objection to taking Mr. Savage slightly out of order?
Yes, because I believe that the issue presented as complex, and I believe that the background and information the division adds, particularly in light of what has been said today, will assist the court and Mr. Savage in this education. So I would prefer that the division.
Go next. Any? And why is that? Okay, so if you're challenging the division's position, and it sounds like you are, then we need to get the division's position on the record. So Ms. Schmidt, go ahead.
Thank you. The division would like to call as its witnesses Mr. William Duncan and Mr. Mark Long.
Mr. Duncan and Mr. Long, do you swear to tell the truth today?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
While Mr. Duncan is here, he is here in the county answering questions of your public policy, because if that effect, I have to be here. Mr. Long is the division's primary witness, and I would like to have him address before him. Mr. Long, could you please state your full name, employer, title, and business address for the record?
Yes, my name is Mark Long. My employer is a Division of Public Utilities, 160 East, 300 South, Salt Lake City, and I'm a utility analyst.
In that respect, have you represented the Division of Public Utilities in this docket?
Yes, I have.
Did you cause and prepare to be filed and file your direct testimony marked as DPU Exhibit 2 in redacted and confidential form, along with Exhibits 2.1 through 2.12 that were confidential?
Yes, I did.
At this point, the division would like to move for the admission of those identified exhibits.
Ms. Lewis, any objection?
No objections.
Mr. Savage, any objection? Mr. Grenny? Mr. Amendola? No. Mr. Lang?
No.
Mr. Martin?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Long, have you had the opportunity to review the comments submitted with respect to this interim rate hearing?
Yes, I have.
And have you been present here today during the discussion presented by the company and comments and questions from interveners?
Yes.
Do you have a statement you would like to make?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Just briefly, at this time, the division is comfortable and continues to support its original proposed rates as an interim rate. In regards to the landscaping meters, we are considering all of the interveners' comments and are confident that a reasonable arrangement can be worked out. But we have not had sufficient time to analyze the effects of the interveners' proposal, but will consider them in the course of the case as scheduled.
Mr. Long, are you familiar with the distinction between an interim rate and a final rate?
Yes.
Could you please describe for the court the difference?
Yes, an interim rate is only a rate that's going to be enacted based on what the commission approves until the final rate can be adjudicated.
Can an interim rate be subject for true-up such that if the final rate is higher, a surcharge can be added? And if an interim rate is lower, a refund can be ordered?
That's correct. The commission can order either or both of those.
So is it true then that an interim rate serves as a temporary measure to increase the revenues of the company on a, shall we say, interim basis with the ability to be corrected when final rates are issued?
Yes, in this case, it would increase the rates, and they would be able to be corrected at the time that the final rates are approved.
Is it your testimony that you believe an interim rate is appropriate and should be granted at this point?
Yes, definitely.
And which interim rate do you suggest that the commission grant?
The one that was originally in docket in exhibit number 2.
So what you filed in your direct testimony that was presented by the company in its interim rate application, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Long is now available for cross-examination and questions.
Okay, and just for the record, I have a copy of your confidential direct testimony. I've marked it as Division Exhibit 1.
Thank you.
Ms. Lewis, any questions for Mr. Long?
We don't have any, but we just would like to reiterate our support for the division's rate as recommended.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, questions? Mr. Grenny? Mr. Amendola? Mr. Lang? Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin, are you still with us? All right, we'll move on. Go ahead and take your next witness.
The division is done.
Oh, very good. All right. Mr. Savage, it is your turn. Do you swear to tell the truth today? Go ahead. Will you make sure your microphone is on?
There, I got a green button, sorry. People don't usually complain about not being able to hear me. The proposal, without any modification from Community Water, is unfair to the homeowners in that they will be paying more for their landscaping water than 30 individual homeowners would pay. The community water proposal is much better and more fair, but it still would result in the homeowners of Plat B and D paying more. Now, I want to address this as an interim rate. Right now, those 30 homeowners are paying $12 a month for their water bill. With the community water proposal or the commission's proposal, they would be looking at $400 or $500 a month increase overnight, just being hit with a bill. So this is important from an interim standpoint. It can't wait until the final rate decision. If this is implemented, it will have a dramatic negative impact upon these 30 people. Now, the proposal of community water would split the irrigation water 1/30 to each of them, which is much more fair than simply charging the homeowners association for that first 12,000 gallons. But it ends up with the same net effect, and let me give an example. Let's say there are 30 separate individual households, homeowners, completely separately metered. They're watering 30 lawns. The homeowners association for Plat B and D waters 30 lawns. If we have all of our people absent, all 30 not using any domestic water, as soon as 12,000 gallons goes through the meter, those 30 people will be paying 60 cents per 1,000 gallons. For just 12,000 gallons, even though we're watering 30 lawns, it should be 360,000 gallons, 330 times the 12,000 before those 30 individual homeowners have to start paying 60 cents per 1,000. If they were individual homeowners, each watering their lawn separately, they would get a cumulative total of 360,000 gallons for those 30 lawns. So the homeowners shouldn't be charged at what I would call the back end of this. It should be a credit for the conservation use by the 30 homeowners and billed to the homeowners association. So what we should do, instead of just dividing the irrigation water by 30, because that means as soon as 12,000 gallons goes through the meter, which is nothing when you're irrigating 30 lawns, they go to the higher rate. What we should do is take the domestic use of the 30 Plat B and D homeowners, total that number, subtract that number from 360,000 gallons, and that would be the number that Plat B and D gets at the 30 cents per 1,000 gallon rate, and then for each of the successive tiers. So take an extreme example, let's say all 30 of our homeowners were gone for the month and used zero water. We would have 360,000 gallons go through the irrigation meter before the rate would bump up to 60. That would make it fair and equitable to those homeowners, put them on the same footing as 30 separate homeowners would be if they had been gone and had zero usage other than their sprinkling system. So it should be still billed to the homeowners association, but they should get the cumulative savings of the 30 homeowners who are not using 12,000 gallons each, or averaging 12,000 gallons before they get kicked with the higher rate. It's also unfair, it's a much more minor point, but it's also unfair to bill those 30 homeowners for 2 extra meters, the $33 a month times 2. Small amount of money, but it also is a charge that 30 individual landowners would not have under the proposal. So I have no objection at this point in time to the rates. I don't know if they are fair or not. I don't know how they were even arrived at. But I think for the interim, we have to have a methodology that will put the Plat B and D 30 homeowners on an equal footing with 30 individual homeowners in how they get bumped up to these higher tiers and higher water rates. The proposal by Community Water is much more fair than doing nothing, which is the division's apparent position right now. But it would still be more fair to do it the other way, which is to total the usage of the 30 individual homeowners, subtract that from the 360,000 gallons, and then that would be the number for determining when you kick up from tier 1 to tier 2. But right now, with the division's proposal, you would take this irrigation water for 30 people and treat that as if they didn't exist, that you were just, when 12,000 gallons went through, you'd bump up to 60 cents. When 24,000 gallons went through, you'd bump up to $1.20, when in fact you're watering 30 lawns and not just one. So I'm happy to entertain any cross-examination or questions anyone might have.
Ms. Lewis?
I appreciate Mr. Savage's comments. I do think they bring up a couple legitimate concerns, and then also an opportunity to clarify the Community Water's billing proposal, which I think will ultimately address the concerns that Mr. Savage has presented. On the first note, I do think that Mr. Savage has brought a legitimate concern about charging base rates for the irrigation meters if we are also charging base rates for each individual townhome. I think that Community Water would agree that having base rates for those irrigation meters would be an additional charge that a typical standalone homeowner would not have if they've already paid their base rate. So moving forward, I think that that is something that we can discuss and most likely adopt, is not charging for extra for the irrigation base rates. In terms of how to charge for each independent townhome, I agree that the ultimate goal here is to ensure that every single connection that pays a base rate is treated like an individual homeowner. And if you are an individual homeowner who is metered, you would have your domestic use and your culinary use combined. And that number of usage of your combined domestic and irrigation would then be charged against the recommended tier rating. How Community Water has currently proposed to do that does that same exact thing, with the caveat that there's not an individual meter, individual usage for irrigation, but it's just merely the shared pro rata percentage for each of the townhomes. But the way that we have proposed to do it is, yes, for the 30 homes, you get the first tier rate is 30 times 12,000. And so what we're doing is
It's 30 times 12.
30 times 12,000 gallons.
You charge 30 cents per thousand.
Per 1,000 gallons, yes.
So it's 30 cents times 12, or $3.60 for your first 12,000 gallons.
Yes. It's just more talking about that each home will independently get to have the tiered rate analysis as recommended by the division applied to it. And how you determine usage is you will have the individual metered irrigation usage, or individually metered domestic usage. So let's say that you're farmer A and you live in townhome A and you use 8,000 gallons of domestic use. And then addition to that domestic use, you'd be charged your 1/30th pro rata percentage of, or pro rata portion of the cumulative irrigation for the Plat B and D irrigation. So let's say that that 1/30th turns out to be 4,000 gallons. So you'd go 8,000 plus 4,000 equals 12,000, and you'd remain in tier 1. Let's say that you use 9,000. Let's say there's townhome B. Townhome B uses 9,000 gallons for domestic use, applied to, and then you add to that the pro rata portion for the cumulative irrigation of 4,000. It will put them at 13,000 gallons, and they'd be charged for tier 2 pricing. So the total amount of water is still times the 30. It's how you account for it, and you account for it by doing the individual meter domestic use, added to that the pro rata portion of the irrigation, and then that total number is then applied to the tiered rate system.
So in the situation where a homeowner is gone for the entire month and uses nothing, the portion of the irrigation
Would still be applied.
would be applied, and as long as that portion is under 12,000 gallons, it would stay at tier 1.
Yes, exactly. So if you're townhome C and you have no domestic irrigation, you would still be applied those 4,000 gallons, which would be at 30 cents per gallon, so $1.20.
With that clarification, I think that would work. My problem was I thought that person would be charged at, say, 60 cents a gallon, even though they were gone, or 60 cents per thousand, even though they were gone, because more than 12,000 gallons immediately went through the irrigation. But if you're just taking the total and then applying, and then doing the math after it gets to the homeowners, then I have no objection
Yeah,
to that.
and I think we're on the same page. You're doing the multiplication at the end, and we're doing the division at the end.
Ms. Schmidt, any questions for Mr. Savage?
Yes, but one preparatory comment. I believe that what Ms. Lewis presented and Mr. Savage agreed to is not what the division proposed, and I believe that it is not clear that what he and she just discussed is what is presented on what has been marked as Community Water Exhibit B. So again, I'd just like to first reiterate that the division's proposal is as it stands, with a base rate and then gallons being counted on each meter as those gallons go through the meter. Then moving on, Mr. Savage, could you please tell me or describe what water is used on the outside for your homeowners?
What water?
Or how
You
the
mean-
water is used?
Okay, do you mean the water that is billed to each 30 of the 30 units, or the water billed through the irrigation meter?
The water billed through the irrigation meters, thank you.
Yes, we're watering basically the lawns and shrubbery. Some people have gone to more xeriscaping in small areas around their units, and we've got a drip system for those. We have a drip system on our berm. The rest is being sprinkled by Thompson heads and rainbirds, and it's probably 90% lawn.
And is that a common area available to all the homeowners?
That's an interesting question. Most of it is. We are not actually a condominium. We're a PUD, so there is a strip of land, and I don't know how wide it is, around each building that is actually owned by the owner of the building, or the owner of each unit. There'll be 4 units or 6 units, but some of the land is actually owned by the residents in the building. The rest is all common area.
In conjunction with your position as HOA president and your experience as a homeowner, were the irrigation meters used in, say, August of this year?
Yes.
September of this year? though it's not quite done, but have they been
Yeah,
used so
it's-
far?
I assume it's being used September. I haven't received a bill.
Have you, in your experience, have you seen that the irrigation meters are used in October,
Generally not.
November,
No,
December?
no.
And I could go on, but then they are turned on in the spring,
Come
is
on
that
in.
correct?
Yes, I believe in May.
Okay. If the homeowners are billed under the division's proposal, is the harm a financial harm? That they would pay more under the division's proposal than under the existing rates?
Oh, yes. And they would pay more than a comparable person who just owned their own house on the same water system.
If the division's interim rates were adopted, however, is it true that final rates, when adopted, if lower than the division's proposed rates and methodology, could result in a refund to these homeowners?
Yes.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Mr. Grenny, any questions for Mr. Savage? Mr. Amendola? Mr. Lang, any questions for Mr. Savage? Right, we'll get there. Mr. Martin, are you with us?
Yes.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Savage?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Mr. Savage, you made a statement that said something about how a homeowner's bill would go from $12 to $400 or $500.
Yes.
How do you calculate that?
Right now, the homeowner gets billed $12 for the first 5,000 gallons. More than half of our homeowners are absentee at any given point in time, so they're having zero usage. The rest are just using water for showering and toilets. So I think they stay under the 5,000 gallons. That's where I get the idea that they're being billed $12 a month right now. Under the community water proposal that we have just discussed today for the first time, they would now be given a pro rata share of the irrigation water. Last month, I am informed by Stacy that our irrigation bill is going to be over $9,000. You divide that by 30, my math is correct, that's about $300. And they would be getting that 1/30th added to their new bill of $33.20, and would be somewhere in the neighborhood, as I said, of over $300,000 to $400,000, or $300 to $400 on their bill when they paid $12 last month.
So currently, are homeowners not paying anything toward the irrigation charges?
They pay it through their dues. We could ultimately have a dues reduction to offset this, but nobody has got the math worked out right now to do that. Right now, their irrigation water, they pay through their dues to the homeowners association. But as I said, they would still get till we have a dues reduction, they would still get the dues bill for the same amount, and then they would have a water bill that would be $300 or $400 when it had been $12.
What are the monthly dues?
$300 per unit.
Does that cover more than just water?
Oh, yes. Yes, that covers lawn maintenance, snow removal, landscape weeding, trimming bushes, accounting services, billing.
All right, Mr. Grenny, it is your turn. Come on up here to the microphone. Do you swear to tell the truth today?
I do.
Go ahead.
It came to my attention that Community Water had been charged $16,000 for 3 million gallons of water, a portion of that water being used during 2015 and a portion during 2016. But the final bill, the bill for the $16,000, wasn't submitted to Summit Water until 2016. So a portion of that bill should have been included in Exhibit 2 as an expense that was not included, and that would be a variable expense. I received the income expense statement from Community Water, and I don't know if some of the numbers I'm going to mention are confidential or not. They came from that income expense statement.
Do you have a document that you want entered as an exhibit?
I do.
Would you let Ms., would you let the attorneys take a look at it?
And I do believe if the information is coming from DPU Exhibit 2, that it may be confidential if it, so we would we like to have a moment just to check before Mr. Graney makes his presentation?
That's fine.
Thank you.
May I make a comment as well?
Yes.
We appreciate Mr. Grenny's participation and discussion of these matters. It may be better reserved to discuss the basis for the division's rates for the general rate hearing. This is a limited hearing for the interim, and currently now the company agrees with the recommended rate by the division as currently stated. Not that Mr. Greening's comments or submissions not to say anything about their merit or that they may be very helpful for a later date. I think for now, the Community Water Company would move to have this reserved for the general rate case.
I'm still a little bit confused as to what he's challenging. It does seem to be as to the basis for the rates charged, and that is more appropriate for the final rate case. But I do want to give him at least a few minutes to help me understand what it is that he's talking about.
All right. I have taken the expenses for the operations of Community Water, and I have categorized them as expenses for the water treatment plant, for the pumping, and for the imported water. So there are 3 sources of water that are being provided, and the difference in cost of production ranges from 24 cents per 1,000 gallons to $9.50 per 1,000 gallons. It is my opinion that the tiered rate structure that has been proposed, even at the interim level, is inadequate to even cover the cost of production of water that Community Water is providing to its customers.
Okay.
And I would like to also mention that I am a water user and I do pay the rates. But it's also very important to me that Community Water be a viable company, because the alternatives are much less attractive.
Okay. Ms. Lewis, any questions?
No, just a comment that we do concur with Mr. Grenny's comment that I think our goals here are all shared and that we do want the company to be a viable company.
Ms. Schmidt, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Savage, any questions? Mr. Amendola? Mr. Lang? Mr. Lang, any questions?
No question.
Mr. Martin?
No question at this
Okay.
time.
Thank you, Mr. Grini. All right, Mr. Amendola, it is your turn. Do you swear to tell the truth today? Okay, go ahead. Will you check your microphone, make sure it's on?
Okay. Thank you. My comments will be very brief. I just wanted to first endorse the comments that have been submitted by Terry Lang on behalf of the Red Pine HOA, and just touch on a couple of those comments. But first and foremost, our situation is similar in many respects to those of Plat, the concerns raised by Scott Savage on behalf of Plat B and D. We have shared irrigation meters for several units, but I would like to say that our situation is even more extreme because we have we have 200 units on 8 irrigation meters for the Red Pine chalets. So an issue that deals with 2 meters for 30 units somewhat pales in comparison when you think about the same issue as it relates to 200 units. And specifically in the division's proposal, they again fail to address the accumulated usage for these 200 units and how that would be used to keep water in the Tier 1 rate as long as possible, for as many gallons as possible. We also have a similar situation on the townhomes, and in that case we have 60 individually metered units, and for that reason the division is insensitive to the rates, the allocation for water for those individuals. However, because they're individual meters, they could be allocated and addressed separately. And the only other comment that I would offer is that the proposal that was developed by Community Water and presented today would mitigate that situation materially. I don't believe that the proposal was part of the analysis in the interim rate, and therefore it has to be considered thoroughly before we can move forward with that and have that incorporated into the analysis conducted by the division, and therefore we need to allow them time to do that.
Any questions, Ms. Lewis?
No questions.
Ms. Schmidt?
No questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Savage? Mr. Grenny? Is it part of Mark's confidential direct? What is it? Is there any objection to this document coming into the record?
I object. I think that the more appropriate time to have this document entered into the record is at the general rate case hearing.
Go ahead. Ms. Schmidt?
I do not object. We have had an opportunity to see it, but I would note that it would need to be marked confidential, as it does contain confidential information. And I would also take this moment to encourage the interveners and others to provide this information and more in their direct testimony, which is due to be filed tomorrow.
Can you include it in your direct testimony, Mr. Grenny? Okay, I think that would be the most appropriate way to deal with that. Mr. Lang or Mr. Martin, does either of you have a question for Mr. Amendola?
This is Lang, and no.
This is Mr. Martin, no. not
Okay.
at this time.
Then Mr. Lang will go to you. Do you swear to tell the truth today?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
Yes, so as far as the individual meter charge per month for these landscaping irrigation meters, I think that puts the entire complex at a disadvantage when compared to an individual freestanding home, which only has one meter and therefore has only one base charge. So base charge to the chalets of, I think it's 8 meters times $33, whatever the base rate is an extra burden. And in addition, as far as the assigning to the townhomes 1/60th of the irrigation water, what that the effect of that also is that since this is all common area, undivided common interest to the 60 owners of that phase, it strikes at the heart and does not allow, I guess, perhaps the HOA dealing with the common area issues to relegate and to manage effective water management, even though the correct cost may be passed on to an individual owner through Community Water's proposed action, a methodology. It defeats the purpose, so to speak, and this would hold true for B and D plats also, the ability to manage the property the way the HOA is charged to do in the interest of all the owners. And so I think it's better served to have that bill go to the HOA itself and let the HOA divide up the cost of that bill amongst its owners as it deems fit, by the HOA CCNRs. That's my comments.
Any questions, Ms. Lewis?
I have some comments on that. I'm appreciative of Mr. Lang's participation. He's been very helpful in understanding and elucidating what some of these issues are. I take issue with sending the irrigation bill directly to the HOA with the understanding that it is taking away some of the general purviews of an HOA to bill the individual homeowners directly. But the primary purpose of making sure that HOA, making sure the townhome irrigation portion is attributed to each of the individual townhomes is so that we can get the combined usage of both their domestic and their irrigation so that it can be applied against the general rate structure as recommended. If the bill is sent to the HOA and the HOA bills independently for the irrigation, essentially you're treating each townhome as if they have 2 meters subject to the rate. So you'd have a domestic meter that has its own tier 1, and then the HOA would have its own bill for an irrigation meter subject to its own tier 1, where in reality, to be fair and equitable to a single family townhome or a single family home, that irrigation and domestic must be combined and compared against a single tiered system.
Ms. Schmidt, any questions for Mr. Lang?
No questions.
Mr. Savage? Mr. Grenny? Mr. Amendola? Mr. Martin?
No, not at this time.
All right.
May I rebut Emily Lewis?
Yes?
Because I just respectfully kind of disagree. I couldn't quite hear everything, just static on the line. But I think the net result for billing and money flow into community water has not changed at all. Currently, the HOA does get the bill for the irrigation for the townhomes, and the fact that it gets dispersed appropriately within the HOA dues and assessments, I don't think impacts any kind of money flow to community water at all. I don't think it treats the individual townhome differently or makes them a different class of water user than the way it's working right now as far as the way the bills, to whom the bills get sent.
Thank you.
And we would respectfully disagree with that assessment.
Mr. Martin, it is your turn. Do you swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
All I have is a comment, and I think it kind of builds on what Bill Grenny's issues were, and that is that not necessarily for this interim rate, but before we adopt the final rate, there needs to be some very serious consideration given to what appears to be a very drastic reduction in the tiered rate. And I'm just concerned that the proposed tiered rate under the interim rate is even close to carrying the cost of the system if it's expected to be independent.
Ms. Lewis, any questions for Mr. Martin?
No, we would just reiterate our comments with Mr. Grinning. We welcome their participation and a further discussion of this at the general rate.
Ms. Schmidt? Mr. Savage? Mr. Grinning? Mr. Amendola? Mr. Lang?
No.
Okay. Thank you all very much. I need to know what I am taking back to the commission. In Community Water's application for interim rates, it asked for the division's proposed rate schedule to be applied. The divisions has indicated here today that under that proposed rate schedule, the irrigation meters would go into Tier 2 pretty quickly and be billed at Tier 2, Tier 3, and so on, with those accumulated charges then being split among homeowners, however it works out mathematically. But what Community Water has actually proposed is to not have those irrigation meters bump up into Tier 1, Tier 2, but simply to use them to calculate the total number of K-gals going through, and then divide the K-gals by the number of homeowners, and then assess each homeowner per tier. So I need to know which proposal I'm taking back to the commission for review.
I believe a simple way that you could articulate Community Water's position is how you understand the word connection. We would like to just understand the word connection in the most equitable way possible, and so for us, a connection would be a unit in a condo that pays a base rate, a townhome that pays a base rate, or an individual family or a freestanding home that pays a base rate. That, in our mind, is what should consist of a connection, and that connection in terms of usage should include both its domestic usage and irrigation. In the terms of in areas where you have communal irrigation that's not part of a single family home, that would just be their pro rata portion of the communal irrigation in that system. And we understand it is a little different, but in terms of equity, that's how we think a connection should be understood.
Ms. Schmidt?
Yes, thank you. And as during the course of this hearing, Community Water's proposal has changed a little bit, the division would like to submit for consideration as an interim rate the rates proposed by the division and as discussed here today.
Which would mean that the irrigation meters would be billed separately and would bump into Tier 2, Tier 3 based on the actual number of K-gals going through them.
That is correct. And then as an interim rate, there would be an opportunity for a final rate decision to be made, and then for the final rate to be approved, to be applied, and the interim rate trued up.
Okay. All right. I think I understand the numbers and the various parties' positions. I think I know what the issues are to discuss with the commission. Is there anything else that any person here would like to put on the record today? Ms. Lewis?
No, but just that I think that I want to recognize that everyone's been, there are a couple small typos in the Exhibit B. Just, there's a one where, under the Red Pine Clubhouse, Tier 1, it should say 36,000 gallons, not 36,001 gallons. And then same thing on Tier 3 for the Red Pine Townhome Irrigation Water. It should also say Red Pine Townhome Irrigation Water. But just in general, I would like to reiterate that it's been a very constructive process and that we very much appreciate everyone's participation, and I think we're coming to an equitable solution.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt, anything else?
Yes, some concluding statements.
Go
First
ahead.
of all, the division welcomes and appreciates the participation of the interveners and the information that they have provided. The division is looking forward to seeing more information, should the interveners choose, filed with their direct testimony, which is due tomorrow. The division believes that an interim rate is truly a special sort of rate. It's intended to provide, on a temporary basis, additional revenues for the company. As has been testified to today, the company needs additional revenues in order to improve, maintain, and upgrade its system. The division believes that the proposed interim rates it has suggested are clear, understandable, and in the public interest, and respectfully requests that the commission grant the division's proposed interim rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Savage, anything else? Okay. Mr. Grenny, anything more? Mr. Amendola? Mr. Lang, anything more?
Yes, am I to understand that the interim rate increase will not address the billing methodology at this point, but the billing methodology is something to be ironed out for the final rate structure, is that correct?
That is up to the commission. The commission will decide how to handle those irrigation meters, whether they are billed individually according to the tier structure, or whether they are used strictly to calculate total usage, which then would be divided among homeowners before the tier structure is applied. And that is the commission's decision.
I'll urge the commission to rule in favor of updated billing methodology. That's my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, anything else?
Nothing at this point, only to say thanks for the opportunity to participate.
All right. I will be meeting with the commission promptly. Yes?
So the commission can kind of adopt the illustrative table that Community Water provided today.
You can.
So they can kind of hybridize the interim with the
The commission will address whether an interim rate is necessary, and if so, what it will be, and it will set that rate.
but it can also incorporate the information that was presented today.
Correct. Okay, one last item of business. Interveners, your direct testimony is due tomorrow. That's your deadline. Some of you have filed some comments, which do not necessarily constitute testimony, but they are of record. The commission's rules require that your direct testimony be filed on paper. However, the commission can also deviate from that rule to allow you to file it electronically, which I think is probably what you all need. I don't think it's really realistic to ask you to drive back here tomorrow to give us paper. But is there any objection to the commission deviating from the paper rule to accept direct testimony from interveners by electronic filing?
The division has no objection, but would request that the commission remind the interveners to serve the other parties also by email.
Thank you. I will remind you of that. You need to put the commission's email address on your address list when you send it. You also need to include the division. You can send it directly to Ms. Schmidt, and you need to include Community Water, so you can send it to Ms. Lewis.
And as a note, there are several service lists floating about, and there's an incorrect email address for myself. I am EEL, like Emily Elizabeth Lewis at Clyde Snow, not Emily Lewis at utah.gov.
Oh, great.
I used to be, though.
And also, there have been some interveners granted intervener status, so they should receive copies of what is filed as well, please.
Correct. All right.
If anyone has a question, I can provide you with a service list.
Thank you. All right, with that, I believe we can close the hearing. Thank you all very much. We will get an order out as quickly as possible.
Thank you.